Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar. It's time to start now. So having given a chance to all of the loggers to join us. So today we're hosting the webinar Market Update Solar Energy in Brazil by ATA Insights, and we'll have two expert speakers, Hector Sanchez from Soltec and Ivan Reyes from Longi Solar. Can I get you to introduce yourself briefly, Ivan?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, good evening, depends the place you guys are. I'm currently based in Mexico City. So here it's 11 a.m. As Carlos was mentioning, I'm responsible for the Mexico market as well as Chile, and I'm providing support for sales for Longi Solar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ivan. And Hector, introduce yourself briefly, please.
Hello, how are you? Thank you everybody for attending this webinar. Well, my name is Hector Sanchez. I am sales manager at Soltec Trackers here in Brazil. I am right now in our factory in Salvador de Bahia. So if you hear some noise, it's because we are manufacturing, okay?
That's a very good reason to make noise. I hope we can still hear you though. So, right, you'll be the first to present, Hector. So if you get your presentation on the screen, and then in the meantime, I'd like to remind you that we have a tradition here at ATA Insights that we, on the chat box, we mentioned where we're joining from. So I'm here from Madrid, Spain, with my colleague Araceli, who is behind the scenes, making sure that everything works fine. And yeah, so you know, don't be shy. Tell us where you're joining this webinar from using the chat box. Also, we'll have the I'd just like to remind you that we will send you the presentation slides and the recording of this webinar. So you'll get it a day or two after the webinar ends. And yeah, there's not a good reason to go away and do your own thing now, because today is your chance to actually ask questions to our experts who are online today. So how do you pose your questions? You pose them through the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of the screen on your toolbar. Right, so Hector, over to you.
Yeah, so I start?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm sharing my presentation. Can you watch it?
Yes, I can see it perfectly.
Okay, so let's go ahead. Well, as I said, I'm Hector Sanchez, sales manager at Soltec Trackers Brazil. And thank you all for attending this webinar, and thank you to ATA Insights for inviting us. Here we will make an update on the solar energy market in Brazil, okay? So let's go ahead. Well, we are going through 5 topics in this presentation. Firstly, I will make an overview on the Brazilian electricity market. Then we will talk about the prospects of the new energy auction to be held in a couple of weeks here. Then we will go through the Brazilian private PPAs in the free energy market. We will continue with distributed generation here in Brazil, and I will finalize by presenting our company here. Well, this first slide has the objective of for you to picture which is the actual situation with the Brazilian electricity market. We have here the amount of electricity power in operation, and we can see the share of the solar photovoltaic energy right now, which is a little bit more than 1%, being the hydraulic energy the dominant one in the matrix, followed by biomass, wind. It is important to point out that they have, here we have, because I'm in Brazil too, here we have a renewable matrix with 78 of the power, which is renewable, thanks to the hydraulics. But it's going to be a different situation in the next years, which is the following one. Bloomberg New Energy Financing has a forecast for 20 and 40 for the Brazilian electricity market. About 32% of this matrix will be solar. We are talking about replacing almost the half of capacity of hydraulic by solar. Why is that? Because the hydraulic capacity is being affected by droughts, and they estimate that they will have problems increasing the hydraulic capacity, so they want to replace this capacity with mainly solar. And solar will dominate the electricity matrix, and with a very huge size. We are talking about 126 giga, which is huge. Well, nowadays we have the current situation. By the end of 2019, we achieved more than 2 giga, and the forecast for 2019 is to overcome 3.3 giga. So you can see here in the table, in the graph, that the growing from 2016 is being very, very strong, and it will continue, and even it will be faster. Okay, that's a general overview of a general picture of the electricity matrix here in Brazil. It is important to understand which is coming. And now I would like to talk about the prospects of the new energy auction to be held on June the 28th, giving you some numbers about it. This project, it is a A-4, and this project has to be in operation by January 2023. We achieved a record of power registration, and for the first time, solar was the source with the biggest amount of power, overcoming wind, surpassing wind in the registration. And an important number, it is that 75 of the registered solar power has been enabled. So we will have competing almost 20 giga of solar in this auction, which is huge. A very important milestone is that for the first time, we have bifacial modules, bifacial projects in the auction, having as 17% of the total registered solar power, which is more than 4 giga of bifacial projects. So as we are having challenges with the very low prices all over the world, the players are looking for new technologies to try to make the projects optimal. Okay. I think it's the question that everyone is wondering right now is which is the expected power to be awarded, right? Because we are talking about a lot of giga registered, but what can we expect about the allocated power? So it is the same question that it is making probably the president of Brazil. So let's try to answer it. Well, first of all, before answering the question, let's take a look at the previous auctions, which will give us some information, important information about that. We can see here how from the first auction on 2013 to the last one on the last year, we had a decrease in price being very dramatically from the 2015 to 2017, and being the last one more or less 33 United States dollars per megawatt hour. So we are having a dramatic decrease on the mean price, awarded price, and at the same time we are having an increase of the registered projects. So we expect ahead competition, more projects with a low objective price. But everything combined with a low allocated power, because the estimation of the government, the demand of the government depends on the demand that the energy marketers are asking. And they tend to be conservative, because if they order too much energy, they need to provide it anyway. So they tend to be a little bit conservative, and combining all these different situations, more or less the experts in the Brazilian market are expecting something below 500 megawatts. We don't know if it's going to be 300, 400, 500, but as you can see in the graphic, it's going to be one of the auctions, public auctions, with less PV power awarded. That's the expectation. Let's see what happens. Well, something important to say is that we have good news from the Brazilian government. They announced a predictability schedule, putting a data for 2 public auctions starting this year and finishing on 2021. So we are going to have 2 public auctions per year, including solar, which is a great horizon for the technology. Well, let's talk a little bit about the change in the topic right now, going to Brazilian private PPAs. And for that, it's important to understand first how it is composed, the energy consumption in Brazil. More or less, 30% of the total consumption in Brazil, it is in the free market. So the amount of consumers that are dealing in the free energy market, it's very big. So the room for solar, it's a great opportunity. We have, in the area of free consumers, we have 18% of the total power consumption with a demand over 3 megawatts. Then we have special consumers, which are between 0.5 mega and 3 mega, which represents 8% of the total consume. And then we have self-producers with the ability of selling surpluses that represent 4%. So we are talking about almost 19-20 giga in the free market, which is also an opportunity out of the public auctions, okay? And it is where the market is looking with great interest nowadays. We had an increase of 33% in the free energy market since 2016 because of the opportunity of contracting cheaper energy. So we expect an increase even in the next year. So the free energy market is very interesting for the technology right now. Why PPAs already make sense in Brazil, private PPAs? Well, because they normally have a more flexibility and better energy prices than public auctions. The prices that you can get from a private PPA, they are normally better than the estimation that we are going to have in the public auction. So And then we have reasonable contract duration. We have already projects, we have already contracts in the free market that goes through 10, 12 years, even 20 years. So 20% of the private PPAs in Brazil have 8 years duration or more. So we have better prices and a good duration contract, okay? But we have some constraints, okay? Which are more difficulties to get connection permits to the grid compared to the public action projects. Because the projects that are allocated in the public action, they have priority to get the connection compared to the private free market. And then we had that the private PPS clients have more corporate risk normally because they are not the government. So we have financing constraints. Some of the players are trying to solve these constraints by going to the traditional national banks, BNDES or BNB, which has a very competitive financing product. But at the same time, because of the amount of money they have, it is not very clear. Some alternatives are being in the table right now, like infrastructure debentures, green bonds, foreign currency, plus edge. Okay. But at the end, even with these constraints, we have very, very huge interest in the free energy market for solar, because currently there are more than 2.5 gigawatts of projects in the process to get ANEELs, which is the connection, right? So we have 2.5 giga of projects waiting for permits to connect for the free market. So the interest is huge. And we have already an example of success of private PPAs. On last year, the Brazilian Private Energy Group, CEMIG, contracted in 2 private options more than 500 megawatts to be operating on January 2022 with a PPA of 20 years duration. So private PPAs are already a reality, okay? And then we have distributed generation, which is also a very interesting piece of the cake here. We have micro installation and mini installation up to 5 mega deployed in residence, commerce, industries, rural properties. And by the already until June 4th, we have in Brazil more than 800 megawatts of distributed generation. And solar represents almost everything in distributed generation, with more than 7,700 systems already connected. Okay, so this is the evolution of the distributed energy solar market. As we can see, we have a very fast growth, similar to centralized utility scale. So the estimation about the distributed generation market in Brazil are very good too. And we are going to achieve a great number of installations in a very short period of time. What makes a state, because we can see there the ranking of which are the states that has more distributed energy working, and what makes the state to be more competitive than others? Well, having an excellent solar resource is very important, because in the north of Brazil, obviously it's closer to the equator, so the solar resource is better. They have normally high electricity price, a favorable legislation, access to affordable financing, and they need an energy compensation procedures in all the state territory. But at the same time that there are very, very good news and public policies, there are some uncertainties, which is an open discussion in some legislation which affects the part of energy which is compensated, which is the RM4A2, and also the tarifa binomia, which is a new way to pay the associated power of the demand that every consumer has. So the things, how you compensate the energy, it's going to be changed in the next few months, and it is producing a little bit of stress in the distributed generation market. But at the same time, the prevision is very good. This is a prevision. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we're kind of running out of time. So if you could wrap up soon, that would be helpful.
Sure. I'm finishing right now. It's just a couple of slides.
Okay.
This is the market perspective for distributed generation, and which is very huge. And then we have Soltec here. Once we talk about the topics, if you are thinking of making business here in Brazil, we are your partner, okay? Because we are here since 2014 with a great team with more than 1.5 gigawatt capacity and more than 250 people here with local manufacturing. We have more than 43% of market share here too, with more than 1.5 this megawatt, it's a big giga, okay? Of projects already in construction or constructed. So Brazil is one of the main markets for Soltec. And not only because of the team and because of the expertise that you will choose Soltec for Brazil, it is also because of our product. We are very focused on looking at the new technologies, and that is why we developed our tracker, bifacial tracker, which we are installing right now in Brazil in a 600 megawatt project. So combining everything, our expertise, our product, which is state-of-the-art in technology, almost in bifacial, and a very, very huge market, which is here in Brazil, I think it makes totally sense for you if you are thinking to come to Brazil to invest, or if you are already in the country and you would like to continue growing up your business here. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Hector, for your presentation. And I've seen that we have already a few questions in the Q&A box. So cool. Please don't be shy, guys. Keep on posting your questions. And Hector, if you could stop sharing your presentation, so yeah. We can get Ivan to share his. That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, excellent.
So, Ivan, over
Ready?
to you. Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much to 88 Group and also everyone for attending this webinar. I will give you an overview, even though Hector already prepared a very good and detailed information of the current market in Brazil. First of all, I would like to just introduce our company fairly quick. Longi Solar. Longi Solar, it's a PV manufacturer. Actually, we're vertically integrated. We started back in 2000, manufacturing ingot wafer. And one of the interesting things about our company is that we focus 100% of mono technology. That means we don't do any other technologies such as poly or thin film. 100% of our production or focus is on mono, right? So we manufacture the ingots, the wafer. Actually, for the wafer, we have very large market share globally. And we actually became an IPO stock exchange in Shanghai back in the year 2012. And then by 2013, we were officially the largest mono wafer manufacturer. And we continue to be here this day. Actually, in fact, right now, our current capacity for ingot and wafer is 28 gigawatts and 12 gigawatts for module. We started to produce also mono modules in 2014, and the reason why was because we see that the change of technology from poly to mono was taking very slow. It was a very slow pace. So then we wanted to understand from the end user what was the reason. So then we decided to make the modules, and then we get very positive feedback from the end users. So right after that, in China, actually, we became the largest mono module manufacturers. And since that time till now, we have seen that switch of technology. Right now, I can say that we're almost on production capacity, 50% on mono technology and 50% on poly. And probably for the next year to come, mono modules will be more abundant in the market than poly technology. And of course, the main reason for this is that mono modules are high efficiency. Some other technologies advantages as less degradation rates, and some temperature coefficients are lower, so then we get better energy yields using mono technology. We have global presence. Our headquarters are based in Xi'an in China. We have a big sales office in Shanghai, as well as the largest overseas office we have currently is in the U.S., which we belong to this office from Mexico, and even for Brazil. Currently, we don't have a Brazilian office, but very soon we're gonna have a Brazilian rep, so then we can provide better service to or to the market in Brazil. Right now, I'm supporting the market as well as some of my colleagues in China and in Spain, the Brazilian market. Since we've been getting a lot of demand, and we see that the Brazilian market is a very, very important market. I could say that it's one of the most important in LATAM, and soon will become one of the most important in the world. Very fast growing market. So now let's just do an overview of the current situation and what we have happened lately in the market in Brazil for utility. Well, as Hector mentioned, this Brazilian market has been, the main driver has been the energy auctions, and of course recently the DG market as well. But in December 2017, basically they were awarded 791 megawatt of PV at the prices of 44 megawatt. And then just a few months later, another 926 mega were also awarded in the 2018 auction. So then we can see that this growth has been mainly driven by these utilities scale auctions. Even though we have seen some recession, we have also encountered some problems with some projects, some cancellations. But it seems like these auctions are becoming more successful. We also understand that Brazil market itself has different challenges, but I can see that the growth and the expertise of developers, EPCs, and also financing, local financing and overseas financing has been contribute a lot. And I, on my personal opinion, I believe that future auctions they could be running more smooth as we have seen it in the past. The challenge we have seen on private PPAs, and this is from some of the feedback also from the developers, is that the struggle is that they have to compete with some other sources of energy that sometimes are cheaper than solar. And also the strategies for finance, they have to be very creative in order to secure PPAs, because, for example, some off-takers are willing only to sign very short terms, probably 2-3 years. So sometimes in order to make a bank or PPI, they will have to include some other strategies. But as Hector was mentioning, there's a huge opportunity for this particular niche market, which I believe that most of the players, and especially the ones that become more creative, will be very successful. I think the time is coming. A lot of expertise in the different supply chain can make it happen. So we are very optimistic about the future for private PPAs. And regarding C&I installations, this segment is being growing at a very exponential rate. We've been getting a lot of requests, and in fact, currently we're supplying quite a lot of product to Brazil for small projects for 5 megawatts. Some of them, they have pipelines of 100, 200 megawatts. And what I can see, especially this year, is that apparently there's going to be change, a little bit of change on the policy. Apparently there's going to be some, they're going to be losing some incentives for these plants of 5 megawatts. So a lot of the developers are rushing into install systems this year. Differently from the utility scale, which we're seeing probably a slow pace of installations, probably 2019. We see the contrary on the C&I. We see a lot of companies trying to install large portfolios in this year. Then the DG segment, also the small commercial and residential, again, has been increasing the demand very, very high. A lot of systems less than 10 kilowatts, I believe, are the ones that are being installed the most. We're in discussions with different distributors for PV products, and differently from even different markets. Here we're talking about distribution contracts for a couple of 200 megawatts, like 100, 150 megawatts. Some of them even being very aggressive, saying that they could handle distribution for 200 megawatts. And a lot of that will go to the DG market, residential and commercial. So this particular market also is booming practically right now in Brazil. But of course, there's some barriers. This is what we have seen from developers. There's a complex strategies in order to bid to get low prices. As you know, especially in the auctions, they expected to get a very low price. So then again, the strategy to source, products, development fees, sometimes they struggle in order to achieve those high prices, and of course get pressure in the whole supply chain. But anyhow, it's also a driver for a lot of new developers. We have seen on Hector's presentation, all the development that is going to be presented for the next auction, and it's a lot. So we see a lot of development being done in Brazil, and this of course will trigger that this competition again. It's going to be difficult for some companies. Of course, locally IPPs right now they have the strength to execute this project. So some other small or medium-sized developers, sometimes it's not even a strategy for them to go into the auctions, right? Due to these constraints. Also, regarding the EPCs, there's just a few of EPCs, right? Especially for this particular auction project, they have to be very aggressive, have to have a lot of source of financing, very, the risk of making a mistake could be costly. So therefore, we see a small EPCs is strong with a strong financing, strong experience. So then again, medium-sized EPC might have a trouble to get into, especially the auction projects. But again, looking into the side of the PPAs, that could be a big matrix for the rest of the players to enter into that market, being more flexible, getting better prices. So I think the future could be bright for private PPA. And also another big issue that we encounter as manufacturers are the local content and the import duties. Sometimes these policies are confusing, are difficult to understand and difficult to get solutions. In some cases, we study the policy, we see what will be the benefit to actually set up local manufacturing to get the rest of the financial benefits. But then after those studies, we see that sometimes it becomes even more expensive to do the local manufacturing. So, and without having certainty for how long the policy will remain the same. For example, my understanding is that for next year, the local content for manufacturing solar cells will be eliminated. So then all those things make a manufacturer to have difficulty to make strategies and to make decisions to whether or not make a local manufacturing operation in Brazil. So that's some of the constraints. Here we have some graph of the auctions. Currently there's two different auctions. We have the new energy auctions, which usually actually takes place every 2 years by the government, and then the reserve auction, which this is at the own discretion of the government when they can launch an auction. So then we see, it has actually the demand has been steady, at least on 2017 there were less projects awarded, but again, the price that we've seen, it tends to become very, very aggressive, and which this could also lead us to this competition and the expertise for the developers, is getting better. So I think the trend will continue to be seeking for lower prices. And also making some reference about the bifacial. This technology right now, LONGi, we have already reached the supply of 1.5 gigawatt of shipments worldwide. And as Hector was mentioning, in order to achieve lower prices, lower LCOE, we have to start utilizing new technologies. And the trend on technology is that we're actually seeing higher and higher power outputs on the modules, but now we have the possibility to actually harvest the power from both sides of the module. Last year, LONGi has been a pioneer on this technology, and last year when we started to promote this technology in Latin America, we saw a lot of difficulties to make, not only from the technical side, but also from the financial part, right? Because it was new technology, it was difficult to get probably to make it bankable. There was no enough track record, and of course this make it difficult for an entry. But now the things has completely changed. As I say, now with this track record worldwide, we've seen projects using, even a couple of projects now that we have supplied that are fully project financed. So then also the technical advisors are getting more experience. We have more data about the results of the back end. So this technology, in my personal opinion, I think for the auctions are going to be is going to be a key product in order to bring down the levelized cost of energy.
Sorry, Ivan, we kind of need to wrap up because we're running out of time.
Sure. Actually, not too many. Just a few more PV drivers about the DG market. Probably this I can go very fast since already was also mentioned by Hector. By 2018, we saw 560 megawatt of installed capacity, and right now we saw on Hector's graph that number has been increased up to I believe it was 800 megawatt on 2019, something like that. But from what I had, the information that I have got from some of our clients, they said that probably they expected to actually achieve the 1 gigawatt capacity installed by the end of this year. Okay. Also, we see installers, local installers, and EPC contractors. They're increasing the number. They are also increasing the experience, and of course, this is bringing the installed cost fairly good in order for the end user to start procuring this type of system. And then just final comments. Probably here we'll share the presentation, and it's just a resume of what I have already mentioned in the presentation. And here I have my email in case you have any question. We'll be glad to reply via email as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ivan, for your presentation. Very interesting. I can see already that we have a few questions coming to the Q&A box. If you could stop sharing as well, Ivan, so we can, the viewers can see us during the discussion. And right, so as I said, we have a few questions coming through the Q&A box. I encourage the viewers to pose more questions, but before we start with those, actually, I wanted to ask both of you about the general trend that we're seeing for lower prices in auctions. What does that mean to developers? What kind of company is going to be able to develop projects and still get a profit in an environment where you're talking about low prices per megawatt hour?
Well, so I start maybe, right? Well, this is a very interesting question, right? I think we need, for sure, we need good projects, right? The developer needs to focus on finding a good project. That's obvious. But not only a good project, a good technology too. So bifacial is a way to try to get competitiveness. Using long GPV panels, bifacial with our trackers, as we already are doing in a project there in Mexico. Using our tracker, you will have more yield than using, for example, a non-bifacial one-portrait tracker with shadowing the rear part of the PV panel. So one thing is to try to improve the project using the good technology, and the other thing is to try to think very well in how is the structure of the PPA. I mean, there are some strategies coming right now with a hybrid model. Some of the players are thinking of winning the public auction, but at the same time sharing the energy with a private PPA, because private PPA prices are better. So a mixture of selling your energy between the government to give you a good PPA, a long-term, less risk, combining this with a private PPA, which will give you a better price in the first years, and so on, you can increase your competitivity. So that's a way, combining technology with different strategies from the point of view of selling the energy, I would say.
Okay, thank you very much, Hector. So I don't know if you'd like to add anything, Ivan, or shall we move on to the questions we have on the Q&A box?
Yeah, actually, I'm 100% agree with Hector. Technology right now, it's evolving in order to harvest not only more energy, but also harvest for a much longer time. For example, right now, the bifacial modules, before the normal, let's say, production warranty on a module it used to be 25 years for 80% of its power output, right? So now, for example, in our case, our bifacial modules goes up to 30 years for actually 85% of its power output. So now technology has been improved. Degradation is much, much less. So then at the end of the day, this LCOE is much lower. And then of course on the spreadsheet, on the financial spreadsheet, these numbers change completely, right? So then it starts making more sense. Now it's not only the decrease on cost of the equipment, but how the equipment is capable to produce, to be more efficient, right? To produce more energy.
Thank you very much, Ivan, for your answer. So let's answer some of these questions on the Q&A box. We only have a few minutes, so we won't be able to answer all of them, but you will get, I'm talking to, the viewers, you will get their contact details of the speakers on the presentation, so you can follow up with them after the webinar. But let's get started. So one of the questions was, who is developing distributed energy in Brazil? Are there any big players as such that are developing distributed energy, or is it a market more of that is more in the domain of installers?
Well, yes, we need to differentiate between micro generation and mini generation, because in micro generation we can find for residents the installer attacking this market share, but then we have the PV plants almost below 5 mega, which are very interesting from a point of view of utility. You know, we are finding some big companies right now, traditional utility companies, that are attacking the mini generation market, because the amount of expected power to be built is it's very big. It is more complicated because you need to build a lot of projects, but 5 mega project is already a good size. So we already can find big companies already doing these mini generation projects, not just installers.
Okay, thank you very much, Hector. So let's try to answer this question, which I think is really interesting. It's by Christian, and he's asking why financing is only offered for 2 to 5 years. And also, is it the same? So we know that banks offer financing for 2 to 5 years. Is that the case with bandits as well?
Yeah, actually, you know, with the development bank, I believe could be, you know, longer. But for example, when it's on a short period of time, the interest rates are much lower. I mean, it's not that the project cannot be financed for longer periods. I mean, it is possible, but of course, it is going to depend on the project, you know, on each independent project. But then again, here the main problem is the interest rates, right? For example, with this local content, then there's some advantages to have a lower interest rates. And, you know, of course, it could be a longer time. But again, for example, for PV products that do not comply with the local content, then the source of financing could be longer time, but probably the interest rates are going to be much higher, right?
Okay, thank you very much. There is a question here that is for you, Ivan. So I can't read the name of this user because it's it looks like a Wi-Fi password, but Mr. Wi-Fi password asks how could Longi secure bifacial production for the IPPs? So do you have some good, reliable data now on the production of bifacial panels?
Yes, of course, you know, we started to get some projects on operation last year. So we have data. I believe some of the data we have right now is up to 13 months. And, you know, that data we can share it. And also we have contracted, you know, independent labs like TUV, RETC, which they're conducting pilot studies with different albedos, different mounting heights, you know, also different structures, fixed, single axis trackers, and so on, which are independent. And these results are being favorable, so that we can also share. Right now, it's not that the product can actually guarantee, right? I mean, what we guarantee, we can guarantee the performance from both sides of the module. But again, the design, okay, that's the one that is the most important, you know. What's the albedo, the height, the type of the structure, and the design of the project itself is the one that actually is going to dictate how much energy extra gain will be getting. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ivan. If you have some of those studies, I think personally I would like to see them. You know, if you have one, send them over. I would love to see how bifacial panels are performed and what the difference is with a normal panel. Here's another interesting question by Mr. Wi-Fi password name, who asks, what are your guesses for the prices of the solar auctions, the solar auction this month? Any ideas of what level they're going to be at?
That is the question, right? If we see the graph that I saw about how is the evolution of the price of every auction, if you put it in dollars, you see that always is decreasing. But I think it's near. It is not too much room for decreasing. Okay. And if it decreases very much, it's not going to be practically any project, because we already had a very, very good price here in Brazil, about 33 United States dollars. So my guess would be not too much below 30. Let's see.
Well, that is low actually. But, below 30 even is that is low.
But I'm not very confident that this is going to be.
So you would need someone to capture most of the capacity then, and have like enough scale to be able to make. I mean, I'm speculating here, of course, but just yeah.
Yeah, well, it's difficult to predict.
It's very hard, impossible. Right. So we still have a couple of questions left, but I am afraid we're kind of running out of time. So one of the questions is a technical question, which I'm sure that Ivan could answer later on. So on whether it's better to connect PV panels in parallel or something else. And then we have a question on the taxes that affect the development of projects in Brazil. If you could answer these two questions, after the webinar, that would be great. But in the meantime, we're going to bring the webinar to a close. So thank you to all the viewers who've been with us today, and to both of you, Hector and Ivan, for sharing your thoughts on the Brazilian market. Would you like to say a few words before you go to the audience?
Well, just thank you for your time attending this webinar. I hope it was useful for you. You have my contact in the presentation, so anything you need, and that. Thank you.
Thank you, Hector. Ivan, any words?
Yes, the same. Thank you very much for attending, and we'll be happy to answer any question. We're going to be at Intersolar South America soon, so please pass by. I'll be glad to meet you, to meet the clients in Brazil there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ivan, and thank you, Hector. And before we go, I'd like to remind you that we'll have a lot more webinars like this one on various topics related to renewable energy. So just go to atainsights.com/webinars, and you'll be able to see all of the webinars that we have coming up. So thank you very much for joining us, and see you next time. Bye-bye.